Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. It's a game which many espoused as one of the hardest games ever made, tougher than Dark Souls. And most of this difficulty comes down to the bosses. As you repeatedly face off against them, time and time again, you'll slowly begin to understand them, know their likes and dislikes, slowly grow a bond with them. You'll spend hours of your life with them, thinking about them every moment you have free, just wondering what they might be up to. You'll meet up with them on the one day off you have all week, just to spend the entire day with them. You'll come to learn everything about them, and maybe even, I don't know, hold their hand, much like you would with a very dear friend. So why don't we take a look and see which Sekiro bosses would make the best of friends? It kind of sounded like you were going to go for, like, partner. Huh? You know, like, romantically? I know literally nothing about that. Alright, so while I don't actually have any friends myself, I have read a lot of books, a lot of anime, and played a lot of video games where the power of friendship prevails. So I'd like to think that I know what makes a good friend and the criteria for one. God, I'm so lonely. Also, an additional side note is that whilst I was recording all this footage in New Game Plus, I kind of accidentally beat every single boss first or second time because I am cursed by being the greatest video game player of all time. Please, somebody like me. But what makes a good friend? Well, why don't we take Gobu Masataka Oniwa.
My name is Gobu Masataka Oniwa! As I breathe, you will not pass the castle gate!
He was an ex-barbarian that was ultimately defeated by the local lord Ishin, but then, because he's really good at fighting, he was turned into a trusted retainer and a really high-ranking warrior. And he's a great example of a good friend because, well, he starts out with a firm introduction.
My name is Gobu Masataka Oniwa!
And he immediately then sets firm boundaries.
As I breathe, you will not pass the castle gate!
And this is important in friendship. It's good to know where you stand and what lines to cross and not cross. Sure, he may not be your best friend in the world, but you're going to have a good time. You know where you stand with him. Also, he's got a horse that he loves, and to be honest, like, that's neither here nor there in terms of friendship, but hey, he's got a horse. The Corrupted Monk is a priestess who seemingly just defends the entrance to the Fountainhead Palace, which is this land which is closest to the divine realm. It's where seemingly all the nobles live to some extent, but like super spirit nobles. So we can assume that she'd maybe like be pretty good at like protecting you, you know, good. Oh, they've always got your back. Not really though, because she spends the entire time laughing at you and degrading you. Also, she keeps vomiting bugs onto you, which again is kind of neither here nor there, but I don't know, if you're into that, good for you, but that's not for me. And even then, once you've gotten through all of the insults, all the jokes at your expense, and finally feel like maybe you're building up some kind of rapport with this individual, they literally ghost you. A good friend doesn't spend their entire time making fun of you at your expense and then just disappears and leaves you with nothing. That's not a friend, that's an abusive relationship, and you deserve better than that. We then have the folding screen monkeys, who are sort of based on the proverb of see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil, and literally just don't be evil. I mean, come on, seriously, is it that hard? Just don't be evil. Come on now. They're your group of friends you had during secondary school or university, and you don't really see them that frequently. You only ever see them when you go back home to the Hall of Illusions. And when you meet up with them, you still have a good time with them. It's all fun, but you feel like they've still kept this close-knit bond and they now have something in common, and you just kind of feel somewhat out of place. Probably because they're monkeys and you're not. Which wouldn't necessarily be an issue, you know, we all kind of drift apart from friends, but you can still have a good time. The issue being, though, is that they also don't really care. They don't want to listen to your problems. They don't want to speak about your topics. And they don't even want to see your new shirts. Or, like, be near you. Just literally, they don't even want to exist in your presence, which is a bit of a mood, but is also an indicator of a bad friend. Or friends. Then we have the guardian ape and headless ape, it's the same person, and they're your good buddy. They seemingly never give up on you and always have time for you. Literally, they're so perseverant because they are literally immortal. It's a curse. Hanging out with them, you feel like they've always got your back no matter what. Again, the immortality thing. However, you don't see them for a while, and when you finally meet up again and start hanging out, they keep on insisting on bringing their new girlfriend around, which is fine, it's fine. You know, she's fine, she's perfectly fine to hang out with, it's cool, it's fine. But at the same time, you kind of just want to have a bit of like special alone time, one-on-one time with your friend, you know? Like, you can't really talk about any deep topics such as which Pokemon you'd rather be when she's there, because she just doesn't understand Pokemon and it gets in the way. Like, it's fine. The Great Shinobi Owl and Owl, open parentheses, father, close parentheses, is your dad.
Why, boy? Why can't you understand your father's will?
Which is fine, you can be friends with your dad. If your dad's a cool dad, then hell yeah, be friends with your dad. However, if your dad is the Great Shinobi Owl, open parentheses, close parentheses, your dad, father, then probably not, because he's an asshole. Mainly because he keeps on stabbing you in the back. Quite literally. That's not a good example of familial bonding. The only thing bonding is his sword and your insides.
You taught me well.
That's my boy.
Now, I know the next one's not necessarily a boss, but I'm going to include it anyway, and that is the Great Serpent. Is it a good friend? No! What? No! Huh? What is wrong with you? No! It's a giant snake. They are godless killing machines. They'd be a terrible friend. No! Lady Butterfly is like your old shinobi teacher. She taught you everything you know. She was there for your formative years, and if that's not the good basis for a good relationship, I don't know what is. However, the issue is though, she does kind of keep on repeatedly faking her own death, which is a bit weird, harrowing, and confusing, partly just because she's kind of obsessed on seeing how people will react to gauge how much they care about her, which is just a bit of a weird strain on a relationship. Plus, whenever you approach her about it, you don't know if it's her or just some weird fog illusion she's conjured up. And to be honest, that just sounds like gaslighting. Lady Emma is the doctor that has helped you out throughout the entire game. She's wonderful, she's supportive, she's just generally quite good. She doesn't even really know you, but she's perfectly happy helping you. And to be honest, she's a wonderful friend. Partly because when you start having a bad day and literally start descending into evil, she's not afraid to kill you when you start acting out.
The very same stirs inside of you. As such, you must be destroyed.
Which is a wonderful trait for a friend. It's important to have friends who are perfectly happy and willing to call you out when you start acting like a bit of a twat. Except maybe not the killing part. Next we have the Demon of Hatred. And I know what you're thinking. Demon of Hatred? That sounds like a pretty open and shut case. It's not though, because it's actually the Sculptor, who is one of your longest and dearest friends, who gave you an arm. And unfortunately, he's just having like a really bad mental health day where he's just kind of turning into a Shura, a Demon of Hatred. The question is though, do you let one single instance of your friend having a bit of a bad mental health time completely destroy the friendship you once have? Let it taint the entire relationship? No, you don't. You support them and you be there for them, because sure, they might be acting out, they may be even pushing you away and saying horrible things, but they are struggling, and it's important to support your friends when they are struggling with just life in general. If you're the sort of person who doesn't and just turns their back on your friends once they're having a bad time, you're a terrible human being. Not that I would know what that would be like. Next, we have Genichiro, who is your most frequently fought individual. And he is basically your sports rival, your Gary Oak. You face him again and again. One time he'll beat you, the next time you'll beat him, and then you'll beat him again, and then you'll beat him again. But the important part is that you both drive each other to grow and get stronger. Sure, you may fight and bicker and have arguments now and then, but you know deep down that you appreciate them quite deeply, and they've really what have driven you to become where you are. For example, you drove him to get the power of lightning and immortality, which may ultimately drive him insane, but the important part is you help one another in a way that only rivals can, which is a great friendship. At least it would be if it weren't for the fact that Ashina then literally just tears apart Genichiro and climbs out of him like a dick would. He literally destroys all of your other friends to try and get as close to you as he possibly can. Because at the end of the day, he doesn't care about anyone else. He just wants to be the only one in your life, which isn't the mark of a good friend. That's the mark of a stalker, and you should get away from them. Also, whilst all your other friends, like Lady Emma for example, are trying to deal with you on your bad days, they just kind of sit on the sidelines and wait till everyone's had the big emotional crisis, and then just saunters in to be like, oh yeah, do you remember that time when we all dealt with your emotional crisis? Oh god, what bloodshed, am I right? And that is just bad. He's a terrible human being, and you shouldn't be friends with him. Then finally, we have the Divine Dragon, who is literally a god or a divine being, which is going to be quite difficult to approach them. They're basically this super popular individual, but at the same time, they're a bit of an introverted recluse deep down, because really, they just never actually leave their house, which is the Divine Realm.
The Divine Realm.
So, if you ever want to hang out with them, you always end up having to break into their house, kick down their door, and ultimately it just ends up making them cry in the end. Oh god. So it turns out that it doesn't actually really matter which boss in Sekiro Shadows Die Twice are good friendship material or not, because it turns out that you, Sekiro, are the worst friend of them all. Breaking into the Divine Dragon's house to literally just make it cry by calling it names? What is wrong with you? Trying to break up the relationship of the guardian headless ape and his new girlfriend just so you can spend more time with him? Get over yourself, you're not that important. Not respecting Yobu Nasataka Oniwa's boundaries that he clearly laid out, and therefore you just break through the castle gate? That's just rude. Sekiro is the worst friend of them all, and I think we should all try and take a lesson from this to not be like Sekiro, self-centered, and thinking that everyone else's time revolves around you. Sekiro is literally the worst. Okay, not the actual worst, that's the giant snake. The snake is the worst. Hello, and thank you for watching my video. Hopefully you enjoyed it about Sekiro bosses. If you want, leave a like or subscribe or leave a comment about things like bosses in Sekiro and your friendships with those bosses. Oh, do you ever take them out for a nice walk in the park? That's always nice. Anyway, if you want, I've got a video up here that's a review about Sekiro. Who would have thought? Also down here is an indie look at a game called Baba Is You, a fun little puzzle game. That's genuinely a lot of fun. You should check it out. Or you can click on my face for the subscribe orb to subscribe. Obviously, that's what that means. Thank you, and goodbye.